This is Denise and Cleveland Brody, married in 2014 after meeting at a Christmas party 2 years prior. These were better times.
And she loved this man. She really, really loved him.
But Cleveland Brody is now accused of violating his wife's trust, the family's faith. Rockdale County deputies have charged him with murdering Denise Brody, knowingly infecting her with HIV, his status completely unknown to her. She died in 2022 at 65.
And how long did she live after diagnosis?
2 days.
She put him out when she found out he was cheating on her. And she loved him so much that she actually allowed him to come back, asked him to take a test because he's out there. Mm-hmm. And he was smart enough to know that it would not get picked up.
Prosecutors first charged the husband in 2023 with only reckless conduct HIV, but the family pushed for murder and did the detective work to share with authorities.
Get evidence of the fact that he had it before he met my mother.
2 years later, now her stepfather is charged with felony murder.
Because at any time he could have told her, I have this, and gave her the right to make the decision on whether or not she wanted to stay with him.
The countdown started the moment they said, I do. Imagine watching the woman you claim to love slowly waste away in a hospital bed. Doctors are scrambling for answers. Her children are desperate for hope. And you're sitting there, holding her hand, knowing exactly what's killing her. Cleveland Brody infected his wife with HIV and then watched her die for 5 years. 5 long years. Playing the perfect husband while Denise Brody fought a battle she never knew she was in. By the time anyone discovered the truth, it was already too late. Now, let me tell you about Denise Brody. Because this woman, she was everything you'd want in a mother, a sister, a friend. Think about that person in your family who lights up every room they enter. That was Denise. At 65, she was still the one cooking breakfast for the entire family on vacation. Still the one everyone called when they needed to laugh. Her daughters will tell you she was larger than life. And honestly, that doesn't even begin to cover it.
This is it! It's over!
It's over. They are unhooking her. Everybody knows the journey. It's been a long one. Well worth it.
Everybody, I made it!
Yes. Woo! Shania.
When Denise married Cleveland in 2014, she thought she'd hit the jackpot. Here's this man who seemed devoted, caring, everything she deserved after years of being single. Cleveland Brody appeared to be the answer to her prayers. But here's what Denise didn't know. And this is where your blood should start to boil. Cleveland had been HIV positive since 2006, 8 years before he even met Denise. Think about that for a second. 8 years. That's not a recent diagnosis he forgot to mention. That's not a slip of memory. This man knew he was carrying a death sentence, and he chose to share it with the woman who trusted him most. For 3 years, they lived as husband and wife. Cleveland watched Denise go to work, spend time with her family, plan their future together, all while knowing he had already planted a time bomb in her body. What kind of person does that? What kind of person looks into the eyes of someone they claim to love and systematically destroys them from the inside out? Everything changed when Denise found that lump. Before we continue, if real-life family crime grips you, hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, and smash subscribe with the bell so you never miss a new case on Fatal Family Network. It was late 2017, right before a big family vacation. You know how these things go. Everyone's excited, plans are made, and then life throws you a curveball. The diagnosis came back, breast cancer. But here's the thing about Denise. Cancer picked the wrong woman to mess with. Even with this devastating news weighing on her mind, she still got up every single morning of that vacation to cook breakfast for her entire family. That's the kind of person she was. The battle was brutal. Chemotherapy that made her sick for days, radiation that burned her skin, hair loss that changed how she saw herself in the mirror. But Denise? She fought like her life depended on it. And she won. February 2019, Denise rang that bell. You know the one I'm talking about. The bell cancer patients ring when they complete treatment. The whole family showed up. Cousins flew in from South Carolina. This was supposed to be her victory lap. Cleveland was right there beside her, playing the supportive husband, smiling for photos, celebrating her triumph, all while knowing he had already set in motion the events that would eventually kill her. But the celebration didn't last long. By summer 2021, something was wrong. Denise couldn't catch her breath walking from her car to the front door. Simple tasks that she'd done 1,000 times before left her gasping for air. The doctors initially blamed it on her previous chemotherapy treatments. "Your body just needs more time to heal," they said. But Denise's daughters knew their mother. This wasn't normal recovery fatigue. Then came the news that shattered their world all over again. The cancer was back, this time in her lungs, metastatic breast cancer. Now, you might think that explains everything, right? Cancer returning, attacking her lungs. Of course she couldn't breathe. But here's where this story takes a turn that'll make you question everything you think you know about the people closest to you. Because what happened next wasn't cancer. It was something far worse. The weight started falling off Denise's body at an alarming rate. We're talking 10 pounds in a matter of weeks. Her appetite vanished completely. The fatigue wasn't just tiredness, it was like watching someone's life force slowly drain away. And then came the memory loss. Picture your strongest family member, the one who remembers everyone's birthday, who keeps the family history alive in her stories. Now imagine that person looking at you with blank eyes, unable to remember your name.
Start your system and lose 5 pounds the
Go ahead and take your picture.
We're not one-hit wonder.
No? I can take your picture. Why? You look pretty. Tell me what today is and I won't take your picture. Ma, what's today? Yes. Ma, what's today? Is it Tuesday? Huh? Wednesday? Huh? It's Wednesday? It's Monday. It's Valentine's Day. You care? You don't care?
Cleveland continued his performance, visiting the hospital regularly, expressing concern to Denise's daughters, playing the worried husband who just wanted his wife to get better. But Cleveland had one piece of information that could have saved Denise's life. One simple truth that would have changed everything, and he kept it to himself while she suffered. Now here's where Tammy and Karen Brody became the heroes of their mother's story. Because when the medical system failed Denise, her daughters stepped up in ways that would make any mother proud. Something wasn't adding up. The doctors kept saying metastatic cancer like that explained everything. But Tammy and Karen had seen cancer in their family before. They knew what it looked like. This question mark. This was something else entirely. Their mother would look at them with blank eyes, unable to remember their names. She'd lose 10 pounds in a week. Her fever would spike for no reason. And every time they asked the doctors, "What's causing this?" the answer was always the same. It's the cancer. But what if it wasn't? Karen and Tammy made a decision that probably saved other women's lives, even though it was too late for their mother. They started demanding answers. real answers. First stop, Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Surely a specialized facility would dig deeper, right? Wrong. Same diagnosis, same treatment plan, just a slightly lower dose of chemotherapy. You have to understand what the family was going through at this point. Every day, they watched their vibrant mother slip further away. Every doctor visit brought the same helpless feeling. And Cleveland? He was right there with them, playing the concerned husband perfectly. "Why can't we figure out what's wrong with her?" he'd ask the doctors. "Isn't there something else we can try?" The audacity of this man is beyond comprehension. Third opinion time. University of Georgia in Athens. Surely a university hospital would think outside the box. But again, colleague of the previous oncologist, same practice methods, same conclusions. 3 different medical facilities, 3 sets of experts, and not one of them thought to test for the one thing that would have explained everything. Here's what really gets me about this whole situation. The Brody daughters were advocating hard for their mother. They weren't passive family members sitting quietly in waiting rooms. They were asking tough questions, demanding second opinions, fighting the medical system every step of the way. And they were right. Their instincts were screaming that something else was happening to their mother. But sometimes, being right isn't enough when you're fighting a system that's already made up its mind. By this point, Denise was bouncing between hospitals like a medical ping-pong ball. Rockdale Medical Center was where she started, but the family grew frustrated with the care she was receiving there. Bed sores from not being turned frequently enough. Staff that seemed overwhelmed and understaffed. So they fought to get her transferred to Emory University Hospital. And here's where the story takes another heartbreaking turn. At Emory, doctors discovered something new. CMV virus. That's cytomegalovirus. It's related to the virus that causes chickenpox and shingles. When CMV affects the brain, it can cause exactly the kind of memory loss and confusion Denise was experiencing. Finally, an answer that made sense. The infectious disease doctor started treating Denise for CMV encephalopathy. But here's the thing about Cleveland's timing. It's always been perfect in the worst possible way. While they're treating his wife for a brain virus, Cleveland was out there infecting another woman with HIV. Think about that level of calculation. Your wife is dying in a hospital bed, her daughters are fighting for her life, and you're out there creating new victims. But back to Emory Hospital. The CMV treatment wasn't working. In fact, Denise was getting worse. The infectious disease doctor started having doubts. This presentation, this progression, it didn't feel like CMV. Then Denise caught COVID. Her already compromised immune system couldn't handle it. Pneumonia set in. Before anyone knew what was happening, Denise was on a ventilator, fighting for every breath. 15 days on life support. 15 days of her daughters having to make impossible decisions about their mother's care. And it was during this crisis that one doctor finally asked the question that should have been asked years earlier. Has anyone tested her for HIV? Just like that. One simple question that changed everything. The test came back positive, not just positive, full-blown AIDS. Denise had been living with untreated HIV for at least 5 years while everyone chased cancer treatments and virus therapies. 5 years of suffering that could have been prevented with one blood test. 5 years of watching their mother deteriorate while the person who caused it all sat in the room, holding her hand, playing the devoted husband. When you really break this down, what Cleveland did wasn't just murder, it was torture. He tortured this woman for 5 years, watching her body fail, watching her mind slip away, watching her daughters' hearts break over and over again. And he never said a word. Denise died 2 days after the HIV diagnosis. 2 days.
How long did she live after diagnosis?
2 days.
She put him out when she found out he was cheating on her. And she loved him so much that she actually allowed him to come back, asked him to take a test because he's out there. And he was smart enough to know that it would not get picked up.
Can you imagine learning the truth about your mother's suffering and then losing her before you even have time to process what that truth means? But here's where Tammy and Karen's fight for their mother took on a whole new meaning. because now they knew this wasn't an accident. This wasn't bad luck or medical misfortune. This was murder. The investigation that followed revealed the full scope of Cleveland's deception. Medical records showed he'd been HIV positive since 2006, 8 years before he even met Denise. He knew. He'd always known. But the nightmare got worse. Remember that other woman I mentioned? Turns out Cleveland had been carrying on an affair while his wife was dying in the hospital. And yes, he infected her too. 2 women. 2 lives destroyed by one man's selfish cruelty. The family didn't just grieve, they fought for justice. They pushed prosecutors to file murder charges, not just the lesser charge of reckless conduct, because what Cleveland did wasn't reckless, it was deliberate. Standing in that Rockdale County courthouse, Denise's family faced the man who had systematically destroyed their mother. And they spoke truth to power in a way that should make every person who hears this story stand up and applaud. Cleveland Brody is a danger to not just Rockdale County, not just the state of Georgia. He's a danger anywhere he goes to women. The prosecutor echoed their concerns. He gave 2 women HIV. One of them died from it. The courtroom was packed when Cleveland Brody finally faced judgment. The man who had spent years perfecting his act as the grieving widower now sat in handcuffs, his mask finally ripped away.
By knowingly having HIV with the intent to transmit it. Judge, there are 3 named victims in the 3 warrants. Victim DB, I'm using initials instead of their name, she contracted HIV/AIDS from this defendant between the dates of 2017 and 2022. She did die as a result of contracting HIV from this defendant. Another victim is named EQ, and this defendant had unprotected sex with EQ between the dates of October 28, 2022 through March 2nd of 2023. Another victim is ND, and he had sex with her between the days of March of 2023 and July of 2023. We are past the 90 days. State would ask for a $3 million bond, 1 for each victim.
Anything that you'd like to tell me about Mr. Brody, Mr. Willis?
Yes, Your Honor. Does the court have any objection to me proceeding my trial?
That's up to you.
Do you have any objections? Yes, ma'am.
I don't have any objection, but there is one witness who would like to address the court, Judge.
Wait a minute. You got a witness?
Correct.
Well, why didn't you call him when you were on your side?
I neglected to, Judge.
You ever done this before?
No, Judge.
Forgotten to call one? Call your witness. Let's get this moving, please.
Sir, will you please take the stand? Do you solemnly swear in affirmative testimony you will give the court in the matter now pending will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you take a seat. Tell the judge what you have to say about bond only.
Mine only.
Bond only.
Good morning, Judge, to the court. I really want to speak to the county of Rockdale regarding bond for Mr. Brody. As the court may have heard, Mr. Brody is what his charges are. There's really, it will be a tragedy to release Mr. Brody back into the county of Rockdale. Mr. Brody has been in the county of Rockdale for several years, and of most of those years he was married to my sister, who contracted HIV, died of AIDS from her husband, Mr. Brody. At no time during all those years did Mr. Brody let my sister know in any type of way that he had HIV. And Mr. Brody has also had contact with several other women, 2 which the court knows of, that either from Rockdale County or other counties. That actually showed that Mr. Brody has no intent to do right by the people of the county of Rockdale and inform them of his condition. So for the court to allow him to go back into the county thinking that he would do the right thing would be a total injustice to the people in the county of Rockdale.
Thank you very much.
Any cross-examination?
There's no cross-examination.
Thank you, sir. You can come down. Do you have any other witnesses you wish to call?
No, Your Honor.
We have no witnesses to call.
All right, this will make a problem.
Judge,
Go ahead, Avery.
Judge, Mr. Brody is 61 years old. He actually just turned 61 years old this past September. Mr. Brody, at 17 years old, joined the Marines where he was honorably discharged. He served in the Marines for 4 years where he was honorably discharged. From there, Your Honor, he moved to Texas. And he has been in this particular area since 2004. He's resided in the Rockdale County area and is released on bond. He would also be residing in the Rockdale area with Miss Alice Williams. Judge, we do have her information. They're actually in a relationship at this point. We expect, Judge, that once this case actually goes to trial, that we will also prove that his status was made clear to all of the individuals in this circumstance. One thing that the state did not go into detail about, which is that his wife was admitted for cancer and was.
This is 3 counts of reckless conduct. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that what he's charged with?
That's correct.
In total.
Yes.
All right. And what is reckless conduct here?
Reckless.
1 to 5.
Correct. Yes. We're asking for a bond in the amount of $100,000, Judge. And in the courtroom to support him is his brother and his mother, who is in support. I think it's important to note in this particular circumstance, in the 61 years, he has never been arrested. He has no criminal record whatsoever. He's been incarcerated past the 90 days. Of course, the court knows, based on the actual charges in this case, that he is HIV.
Well, I think when he was originally arrested, it was not on these charges that are being presented today. It was on different charges.
I believe it was reckless conduct.
It was from the beginning.
Correct.
But there have been 2 additional charges added, apparently?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. While he's incarcerated.
Now, these were warrants taken?
Yes, sir.
When were they taken?
Judge, these warrants were taken from in between the time of his arrest. I believe that the last one was in August. Is that correct?
September the 6th was the last warrant, Your Honor, and the initial warrants were part of the original arrest. So there's 3 warrants. The third one was about 60, 70 days ago.
Yes, sir. And we're asking for a bond amount of $100,000 and any additional requirements that the court may deem necessary to ensure his appearance at trial. Clearly, if he's given a bond of $100,000, Judge, that would be something that would be made by the family. The family, at this point, they are not indigent. However, that would be a very significant amount of money for them to have to pay. And we can assure the court that his appearance at trial, he will be at trial once this is actually called for trial at this point, Judge. So may have some rebuttal.
Does he have a bond set on either of these first 2? And that was because the last time you didn't have your hearing, or the 90 days had not elapsed?
Both, Judge. The 90 days had not elapsed. I believe that there was a bond that was initially denied the first 2 warrants. We had a probable cause hearing, but we elected not to have a bond motion at that point, waiting for the 90-day period in order for us to.
All right. Anything else?
No, sir.
Judge, defense counsel said he's never been arrested. He actually was arrested in Tarrant County in Texas, and he pled guilty to assault causing bodily injury.
You mean Tarrant County?
Tarrant.
Tarrant.
Correct.
When was that?
1996.
All right, I want to set bond and spare on each count of $500,000 apiece. That would be, and you'll do the order.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
If he's released, he'll have a curfew between the hours of 5 p.m. and 7 a.m.
Yes, sir.
And he'll require a ankle monitor at his expense. That'll be the order.
Judge, that concludes our basic interview.
Yes, thank you.
The charges were serious: felony murder and malice murder. But here's what really mattered in that room. Denise's family had found their voice, and they weren't holding back. He gave 2 women HIV. One of them died from it, the prosecutor stated plainly. No dramatics needed when the facts speak for themselves. Cleveland's defense tried to argue for bail, painting him as a community member who deserved to await trial at home. The judge saw right through it. Bond denied. Cleveland Brody would stay exactly where he belonged, behind bars. But the legal system had one more gut punch waiting for this family. Under Georgia law, even with a murder conviction, Cleveland was only looking at a maximum of 5 years. 5 years for systematically torturing and killing his wife. That's the reality of how our justice system values women's lives, especially when the weapon of choice isn't a gun or a knife, but a virus passed through intimacy and trust. Here's what keeps me up at night about this case. Cleveland Brody isn't unique. He's not some one-in-a-million monster who defies explanation. He's a reflection of something much darker about how some people view the women in their lives. Think about the calculation required for what he did. Cleveland had to wake up every single day for years and choose to let his wife suffer. He had to sit in hospital rooms, hold her hand, and listen to doctors puzzle over her mysterious illness while knowing he held the answer. He had to watch her daughters break down in hospital corridors, fighting for their mother's life, while he played the supportive stepfather. And then, this is where it gets even more twisted. He had to go out and create new victims while his wife was dying. That second woman he infected? She trusted him just like Denise did. She believed his lies just like Denise did. And she's living with the consequences of his selfishness just like Denise did, except she survived to tell her story. How many others are out there? How many women believed Cleveland Brody's promises and paid with their health, their future, their very lives? The investigator's words haunt me. We have reason to believe there are other victims. Other victims. Plural. Denise Brody should have died surrounded by grandchildren after a long life filled with family breakfasts and vacation memories and all the joy she brought to everyone around her. Instead, she died alone on a ventilator, her body destroyed by the man who promised to love and protect her. But here's what Cleveland Brody didn't count on. He didn't just kill Denise. He created two of the most determined advocates for justice you'll ever encounter. Tammy and Karen Brody could have retreated into private grief. They could have accepted the initial charges and moved on with their lives. Instead, they chose to fight. They investigated when the police wouldn't. They pushed for murder charges when prosecutors hesitated. They spoke truth in that courtroom when it would have been easier to stay silent. Their mother raised warriors, and Cleveland found that out the hard way. These women have turned their trauma into a mission. Every time they tell their mother's story, they're potentially saving another woman's life. Every time they speak out about what happened, they're showing other families that they don't have to accept inadequate medical care or police investigations. They've taken the worst thing that ever happened to their family and transformed it into a force for protecting other families. That's not just admirable, that's heroic. This case exposes uncomfortable truths about the world we live in. It shows us how easily a predator can hide behind the role of caring husband. It reveals how our medical system can fail women, especially women of color, by not taking their symptoms seriously or thinking creatively about diagnoses. But most importantly, it shows us what happens when evil meets a family that refuses to give up. Denise Brody's daughters saved lives by fighting for justice. Every woman who hears this story and demands honest communication from their partner, every family that pushes back against inadequate medical care, every person who refuses to accept "we don't know" as a final answer, they're all part of Denise's legacy now. Cleveland Brody thought he was clever. He thought he could fool everyone forever. He underestimated the power of a mother's love and the determination of daughters who inherited their mother's fighting spirit. In the end, Cleveland's greatest mistake wasn't infecting his wife with HIV, it was choosing the wrong family to mess with. Denise Brody may be gone, but her light lives on through the women who refuse to let her story be forgotten. And every time someone hears what happened to her and decides to demand better, from their partners, from their doctors, From their justice system, Denise's fight continues. That's how a victim becomes a victor. That's how a family's worst nightmare becomes their greatest strength. And that's how we make sure monsters like Cleveland Brody never again mistake love for weakness or trust for opportunity. Remember Denise Brody's name. Remember her daughter's courage. And remember that sometimes the most dangerous person in your life is the one sharing your bed. Stay vigilant, stay safe, and never, ever stop fighting for the truth. Family should be a refuge, but even the closest ties can fracture. Stay alert, look out for one another, and reach out if you sense danger. See you in the next story here on Fatal Family Network. Thanks for watching.